What's going on, trading card game players? Figs here with Figs Forum, bringing you guys my Yu-Gi-Oh! National recap. So I went to Nationals, of course, for Yu-Gi-Oh! It's the first time that I've actually been to Nationals for Yu-Gi-Oh! Since I want to say like 2012, maybe 2011. You know, after a while, I think after the first Nationals that I went to, I actually pretty much stopped playing competitively, at least for Yu-Gi-Oh! You know, I played more casually. I traveled to a few regionals back in the day, but nothing big scale, nothing like Nationals. I've only gone to Nationals, I want to say once or twice. I really can't recall. I have the worst memory if you know me very well. This is the first Nationals that I've been to actually in a very long time. I never went back in 2016 or the few years prior to that when I was playing. But since I got back into the game last year, I was able to I did manage to get my invite for this year. You know, I actually topped a couple of regionals in which I was able to collect my invite as well as the OTS. Just recently actually got my invite for next year as well. But as I hear, the invites I believe are carrying over from this year to next year anyways. So despite that, either way, just wanted to give you guys a recap of how the event went. I did of course go playing Phantom Knights, or at least some variant of Phantom Knights. I went playing the P.U.N.K adventure package in the Phantom Knight build. This thing I thought it was very fun. It was very good. But this format's definitely really strange. It's a format that's just really dedicated on setting up a board, breaking a board, and there's just so many blowout cards. There's so many floodgates. It's very difficult to be able to play the correct deck as the format is very wide. There is no like best deck. There is no like deck right now that really is just tier 0 or one that's pretty much dominating. If you're able to play your deck very well and you're able to, you know, pretty much perform with it and you know, make it very consistent, put in the right cards to be able to combat the meta, you're going to be very successful. You know, a lot of these decks were playing like Rivalry, Goes in, and I believe that Trap, Floodgates are actually the best things right now, especially in this format, because going first, there's not a lot of decks that are main decking Lightning Storm, Harpies, Feather Duster, any single cards like Cosmic or Twin Twister. Only decks like that are really control decks like Striker, ones that kind of try to play the long game because they lose the cards like Anti-Spell. Floodgates in the form of traps are really huge. I mean, any responses in the form of traps are really huge. I mean, I won so many games just having access to Fogblade, and that's why I honestly enjoy playing Phantom Knights. You know, as you guys know, I think that's one of the best cards actually in Phantom Knights is Fogblade because of its versatility and being able to revive, stop attacks, and negate effects. So I definitely have to say, in my personal opinion, as I've said for a while now, I think Sword Soul is definitely hands down the best deck of the format. I've been saying it. I think Blackout is an insane card. Being able to have the consistency of being able to draw and search off of you know, one synchro, one card into one synchro is pretty insane. And then of course having the versatility of having access to cards that just are very hard to respond to. You know, it's hard to respond to a Tenyi that, you know, has effects in the graveyard. It's hard to respond to, you know, a Long Owl. I mean, their only real targets that you're able to really respond to or interact with is Oye and Taya. So yeah, definitely think that Sword Soul was definitely, you know, the best deck. But of course, you know, I like to stick to the decks that I enjoy. I'm not much on playing meta, especially for Yu-Gi-Oh, since it is, you know, what was supposed to be my backseat card game, but unfortunately it's my most played card game at the moment. I don't want to say unfortunately because I do enjoy it, but yeah, so I definitely wanted to go over how Nationals went for me. It was very fun. You know, obviously I got together with friends. We're able to, you know, enjoy ourselves, and I, you know, participated in the main event. I ended up going 4-3. After round 7, I ended up dropping. Didn't want to play anymore. It was definitely difficult. You know, I had a couple of matchups that I just wasn't familiar with. I've never played against Marincess, and I played against 2 of them. I was able to beat the first player playing Marincess, but the second one I lost to. And then even in the tournament, I lost every die roll but my very first round. My very first round was against Sword Soul, and I won that die roll luckily and was able to get that win. And I didn't start losing until round 3. After round 3, I had lost 2, won 1, and then lost my third. So yeah, I mean, I lost against Sword Soul, I lost against Marincess, and I actually lost against Libromancer, another deck I just didn't know what it did. He won the die roll, set up a Vanity's Monster, and just couldn't deal with it the first game. I tried, but you know, he had access to the trap that negates, and I didn't have a trap with my droplet, so I actually had to normal summon my Phantom Knight Silent Boots. I had to crash it into his Link monster. I want to say it was one of the Link Kriebos or one of those kind of Kriebo ones. I crashed my boots into it, got a trap, Fogbladed or dropleted, sent the Fogblade, a monster, and a spell, so he couldn't interact, and then I pretty much cleared his board, but it just wasn't enough. I wasn't able to set up, you know, much of a board into that, but you know, with having to give up that many resources. But either way, it was definitely an interesting matchup. I didn't know how it performed. I didn't know how the deck played. I didn't even know what I was up against. Fortunately, I didn't even see a hand trap, so I wasn't even able to really get an opportunity to even respond, you know, and being able to interrupt him and setting up his board. But yeah, definitely interesting matchups. Marincess, the second one I lost to, I misread the card. I didn't know it gained a boost every time I banished a monster face up. And of course, playing Phantom Knights, we banished quite a few. So by the time I outed his field spell, He ended up using the trap to make it immune. I did have the droplet. I should have dropleted it right away as soon as I went into my turn or as soon as I activated right. And yeah, by the time I actually was able to go to kill him, I didn't realize that his dude was at like 70 something. And I had game on board. I had access code at 53. I had Griffin, I had a token, and then I had another monster. I want to say it was Breaksword. And yeah, I mean, I had game on board and I went to go to battle and he's like, oh, my dude's at this much. And I was like, how? And I didn't know that it was I thought it was a once per turn, and once per turn I misread it was actually for the draw effect during the standby phase. So yeah, definitely a fault on my part. And then the second game, just the deck just plays a ton of hand traps. I wasn't able to make a real board. And then he just kind of, you know, made the towers guy again, and I'm like, yeah, just hand traps. I mean, he had Nib and he had access to Valor, and I wasn't able to pretty much play around that. But yeah, definitely an interesting matchup. I mean, that's one of the things that I feel like I definitely covered myself on the meta matchups. I was perfectly fine and ready for the meta matchups, but I just wasn't ready for the rogue matchups. Those are the ones that really got me the most. Just again, like, I mean, I don't even know if they're considered rogue, but I'm just not familiar with those decks, unfortunately. So they really caught me off guard. So it made it very difficult for me to be able to play into those matchups. But yeah, I mean, all in all, the deck performed very well. I picked maybe once. I didn't play enough hand traps. I did only play 6. I played 3 Valor and 3 Ash. You know, I felt like those are the best ones going into it with the deck because I was playing Chaos Ruler. And I wanted to be able to pick up a hand trap that would be useful during my opponent's turn. And Valor obviously is one that Chaos Ruler can pick up and is pretty valuable during your opponent's turn. I didn't want to do Nib. I should have did Nib like I was in my last build playing the Ophion, but again, Nib is just one of those cards where if you've already got a solidified board, you'd much rather have Valor and being able to respond to your opponent's board because you don't expect him to break your board. You do expect him to have something or try to answer it, but you don't want to lose your own board to a Nib. You know, the deck does recycle, so obviously it's not too much of a hindrance, but Valor sometimes can just be enough to be able to stop your opponent, especially since they're playing into your board and have to go into certain combos. Sometimes the Valor can, you know, kind of get you there and stop them from being able to find the cards they're trying to get into or the combo that they're trying to get into to out your board. But yeah, all in all, I mean, the deck performed really well. So I do want to give you guys the deck profile as well. In this video, you guys can go and, you know, I'll go through it pretty quickly. No, I won't go too detailed, you know, as most of the cards are pretty self-explanatory. Of course, it's the general pretty much P.U.N.K adventure deck, but just PKs in it. So we kind of take the value of the majority of hand traps that a lot of the decks are playing, or the other little side engines the decks are playing, like the Rose package and stuff like that. And we're pretty much swapping that out for the PKs. You know, the ratios are, you know, what they are and stuff. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. I'll show you guys the deck that I was playing, as well as the sideboard. I felt like the sideboard could have definitely been better. I didn't realize how detrimental the, you know, board breaking spells and traps could have been. Things like Lightning Storm, evenly match. But yeah, I'll go over that. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. All right, trading card game players, let's go ahead and get into the deck list that I played at Nationals. So we have, of course, the Brave package. Standard Brave cards, nothing special, of course, the 3-water Enchantress, the Griffin, and the Draco back with the Faithful Adventure. Obviously, nothing to explain here. All the same standard stuff. Brave engine, you know, very, very good, as it always is. Then, of course, we have the 3 extenders. I went with 3 wielder. Of course, we want to see a tuner as much as possible in this deck. I decided to not go with the BA engine at all. Originally, in one of my builds before, I was actually playing the Cherubini with Graf and Sir. I'm sorry, the Rubik with Graf and Sir. It allowed me to have access to a tuner whenever I set Graf to the graveyard. But instead, I decided to go with 3 Psychic Wielder. He's an extender. He actually has a great effect when syncering. He's able to out a battle card. The only problem is that, of course, when you're using this card, you can't have another copy on the board if you're trying to special summon it. So it does create a bit of a nuance, but it's not too bad. Great extender, great tuner. Then we have, of course, Scythe and Jet Synchron, 2 great cards that we use in order to obviously stop our opponent from playing the game, and also make Hot Red and other broken synchros. Our hand traps, we played the 3 Valor, 3 Ash, as I said before. I felt like this was enough. I did not see it as much as I wanted to, but I did feel like it was enough in terms of playing hand traps. We did want to play something that was more viable, and of course, these are the better hand traps or great hand traps to play with how we're playing the deck. Valor is great too, because of course you can use that in Wandering Griffin Rider to go into Chaos Ruler, which you know, I did a few times. We have the 2 Phantom Knight Agent Cloak, the 2 Torn Scale. We went with 3 gloves, 3 boots, 2 different names for the traps, and then of course the 1 shade. All of these were detrimental. Of course, we did the swap, as I said before. We went with the 2 Torn Scale and the 2 gloves. We did that because we want to see, you know, obviously Chaos Ruler putting cards in our graveyard, and this pretty much is all of these in the same sense. So we wanted to make sure that having an extra copy of this gave us access to extra copies of everything. We generally use the Phantom Knight engine to discard It was great for being able to go through Jet Synchron and the rest of the P.U.N.K engine, and then of course ending on a Fog Blade. So generally, if you saw this, you were able to ditch this for the for the boots, pitch boots for, you know, Faithful, or pitch it for Jet Synchron, or pitch it for whatever else, and then you're able to get access to this. And then if you have another name, you're able to pitch this to bring back another body. Or of course, if you're leading with just the 2 names, then you're able to obviously do a lot more, because Cherubini were able to get you a Brave engine. And then, you know, you have an E-Tele, you're able to just pretty much pop off. So it was great, honestly. And of course, you know, in playing this engine, it gives us access to some really great cards in the extra deck that allowed us to be able to create boards and to get through a lot of things that we normally wouldn't be able to get through if we didn't have access to them. The only thing that I do wish, I do miss Shooting Riser. I think that would have been great, being able to send cards to the graveyard. But obviously with not having access to Snow or not playing Snow, it's just not as great. Then of course we played the 1 Foolish, the 3 Forbidden Droplet, and the 3 E-Tele. And with the 3 E-Tele, we went with the P.U.N.K package. This I felt like was just perfect. You know, having access to 1 Deer Note, 2 Foxy Tune, and 2 Zeamin meant that, of course, if we seen a Foxy Tune, it was always live. We're able to hit these 2. If we seen a Zeamin off the E-Tele, we're able to search one of these. And then, of course, if we seen the Deer Note, we at least had a chance of seeing a name, allowing us to be able to use the effect. But generally, this was great because E-Tele was always live. Of course, we do have the Psychic Wielders that keeps it live as well. But being able to E-Tele on turn 1, getting this, if they negate the effect and we've seen another E-Tele, we're able to do it again, and then search this and this, search this or this into this. So it was great. You know, I definitely had no issues with how I play this. Yes, there is no Rhoda, no call by. I do miss the call by, honestly. I think it would have definitely made a difference in a few matches, because I did get hand trapped a lot. Being able to, you know, stop the effect veiler, hitting my Wandering Griffin Rider, then them nibbing me, would have been nice to have the call by for the effect veiler. But I wanted to make this 45. I didn't want to go over or under, and I felt like there were no cards to really get rid of. Foolish is just too great in this deck, especially considering all the different engines that we're able to use just off the Foolish alone. We didn't want to play Rhoda because I wanted to directly see names, not indirectly. I didn't want to give my opponent windows to, you know, ash me, because a lot of times if you're drawing the names directly, you're not having to worry about, you know, getting ash. You're not having to worry about not seeing the name. Just drawing it directly just means that you see exactly what you need, and you're not having to, you know, play through any hand traps. So we wanted to try to be this deck be as consistent as possible. If they were going to hand trap us, we wanted it to be on the E-Tele. That way the rest of our deck pretty much went off. Or, you know, if they let us E-Tele and they veilered the Zeamin, then we had our normal summon and we're able to go through our Phantom Knight line or any of our Brave engine, you know, safely. So yeah, I mean, this was definitely what we went through with the main board. As I said, it is 45. You know, and I don't think I'd make any or much changes, honestly. The deck performed very well. It's just, the format's very iffy. You know, if you lose all of your die rolls, it's very hard to, you know, win some games. And of course, not knowing your matchups obviously makes a huge difference. But let's continue to go through the deck. So we'll start with the Synchros. We have Hot Red, we have Barone, we have the TG Wonder Magician, and we have the Chaos Ruler. This card obviously is insane, but these cards were great. I didn't miss Herald. I was playing Herald at one point, Herald of Arclight, but I made it a lot less in testing, and I didn't want to have, I wanted to have room for everything else. So this is what I went for the Synchros. This was obviously our main play for going into Hulk, and then obviously popping Scythe to be able to lock our opponent out of the game. And these were ideally the cards that we wanted to end with after we were able to make our Scythe lock. We wanted to TG Wonder Magician into the Barone, and then obviously use these two to set them up, to set Hot Red up to go into a free Omni. And then our Link package is what we went with. Obviously the main card being the Cherubini as always. But this was pretty much our way of being able to end games most of the time. We went Unicorn and Access Code if they were going to lock us out of synchroing. And then, of course, this was our Scythe lock. This allowed us to be able to stop our opponent from playing the game. And the Appaloosa came up a lot. Sometimes if we only have our Phantom Knight line and we're not seeing any tuners, we wanted to make Bardiche and Appo. And that happened 2 times. I was able to pretty much go Bardiche and Appo. And, you know, it definitely works. It's obviously a great way of being able to set up our board with the Phantom Knight line in itself. And then, of course, Cherubini just makes all this happen for us because he's the best level rank level Link 3 in the game. Then, of course, we went Zeus, Downerd, Breaksword, and Leviair. Great cards. Obviously, Leviair allows us to recycle everything. Breaksword allows us to have outs to a lot of things, which was great. It actually came up quite a few times. I was able to out Anti-Spell. I was able to out Rivalry. I was able to route Gozen Match. I did get Gozen matched when I played Princess. And I was able to out it, obviously, with the Breaksword going into the Phantom Knight line. They flipped it right away. But yeah, this was the lineup that we definitely played, though. This was great. Honestly, I Zeus so many times. A lot of times going second, I sided in Dark Ruler No More, so I would Dark Ruler No More. I'd go into break sword, swing into something because everyone puts their monsters in defense because they're scared of droplets. And then I just Zeus, and then I eat Telly and set up my board and scythe lock them. So this was great. Definitely a necessary package. Honestly, the only thing that I probably would have changed is putting Bardiche out and playing Anima instead, the relinquish one, because it allowed us to be able to do a one card Hulk scythe line for Dagda. And Bardiche I actually only made once. A lot of times I use Bardiche to set up traps, and it's really great in like the flu matchup if they don't see D-Shifter. But honestly, I only went into him once. And most of the time, I used Cherubini to just go into Apo because I drew maybe a Fog Blade, or I see my Phantom Knight line, and I was able to end on a Fog Blade, Apo, and Brave package, which is honestly just a really great board. But yeah, I barely went into Bardiche. In this deck, it's like you're more looking for utility, and you're looking to set up a different kind of board. Bardiche isn't really your end construct when you're doing the deck. You're really just looking to get as many resources as you can and set up, obviously, the most unbreakable board you can. And Bardiche is just there if you need that extra body. If you're starting off with some Phantom Knight cards but don't have them all, or you find yourself like hitting one off of Chaos Ruler and you need to see another one, but you also haven't seen your Brave Engine yet, then a lot of times I'll do that. I'll send obviously the Brave Engine with Cherubini, and then use Cherubini to go into Bardiche to get us that second name for the Phantom Knight to then make Apple or something like that. But generally, this didn't come up at all in the Nationals tournament, honestly. I made it once, and that was it. And even the game that I made it, it just, it obviously won me because I made it with Apple as well. But yeah, so that was the extra deck. Let's go over the side deck. I did 3 DD Crow, 3 Joel and Lockbird. That was it for the additional hand traps. I honestly barely sided these in. I didn't really face the matchups that I thought I would be siding these in the most. I thought that I was going to be using it the DD Crow mostly for Despia, and I never played one. No Despia or Eldritch deck. And then obviously the DD Crows for the P.U.N.K Brave Adventure decks, which I only played against one, and that was Therion. Actually, it was Sky Striker, Therion, Brave, and I sided them in and just never saw it. But yeah, I barely sided these in. They weren't that great, obviously, because I didn't see the matchups I expected for them, since I did see more Rogue decks, and Droll just didn't do anything against the Rogue decks. I mean, Droll would have been nice against Libromancer, but I didn't see it when I sided it in, because the first game he just searched a ton. 3 Twin Twister, 3 Anti-Spell, and 3 Dark Ruler No More. These were honestly the MVPs, obviously. I seen Anti-Spell every game 3 that I went first. Every game that I went first and sided these in, I seen it, and it won me the game. I just flipped it and scythe locked them, and it was over. Or I flipped it and had Apple, and it was over. And then Dark Ruler No More won me quite a few games, being able to just Dark Ruler and call it quits. And then the Twin Twisters are obviously there for the Floodgates, Mime, any trap, Floodgates, Anti-Spell, which honestly I never saw Twin Twister siding it in. But yeah, I saw this the most, honestly. Anti-Spell was always there when I needed it, and it won me the games that mattered. And then Dark Ruler No More also was able to do quite a bit in being able to being able to shut off boards and allow me to clear them. But yeah, I think the only major changes would have been, honestly, for me, were in the sideboard. I probably would have went with Lightning Storms and Evenlies, or even Nibiru's, something to kind of just clear out boards a little bit better, because honestly, that was the main issue that I had, was that my opponent were able to break my board much easier because they were playing cards like Lightning Storm, Evenly, and Dark Ruler No More. And yeah, they just pretty much shut off my boards when they could. So yeah, that was the deck profile that I played at Nationals. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, I really enjoyed the deck. It performed very well. Aside from my losses that I had, there were definitely mistakes on my part. I should have been more aware of those decks. Definitely should have been paying attention to any deck that could have possibly been played at Nationals. I try to read the cards as much as possible without taking too much of my opponent's time, and of course trying to understand how the decks function. But unfortunately, they caught me off guard, and that's definitely on my fault, or definitely on my part. But I definitely was ready for the meta matchups, just not that one. And then, of course, my third loss, actually, I forgot to say, was against Sword Soul. I lost in time. He burned me for 12, game 3. I broke his board with Dark Ruler No More. Wasn't able to deal any damage, unfortunately. And then he stalled me out with my Cherubini. It was foreign, and he kept asking about the effect. And then I used Break Sword underneath Cherubini, and he claimed that it didn't work that way. We called the judge. I didn't get an extension, unfortunately. There was 8 minutes left on the clock. He burned up 6 minutes trying to figure out whether or not Break Sword would be able to destroy the additional card. And like I said, I called the judge, tried to get some of the time back. He wouldn't allow it. And it left me with like 2 minutes to, make my board, then pass. And then when I passed into his turn, he took his time, obviously looking at his grave, looking at his options. He wasn't able to do anything. He passed turn. and time was called. So yeah, you know, it's unfortunate, but nothing I can really do about that. You know, obviously that's one, you know, thing about Yu-Gi-Oh that has always been kind of difficult for me, especially coming into the game from a game where, you know, we get 60 minutes on the clock. You only get 40 minutes to play, and then it's pretty much it. And, you know, I don't play anything that burns. I don't play anything that allows me to do any damage in that way. So obviously that was something that he was able to have leverage on. But yeah, definitely, like I said, I enjoyed the deck. I definitely wouldn't have made any changes in the main board. Aside from just the call by, I definitely want to make sure that I'm going to include call by moving forward. You know, it's a broken card. I just wanted to keep it at 45. I didn't want to play 46, and I didn't want to play anything that wasn't going to allow me to play the game going first. I wanted to make sure that I had as many options as possible, but it would have been nice to have the call by for, like, you know, Veiler, obviously, or any other hand trap, just to allow me to keep playing. I see him Brave a lot, so I always had that protection, and I really didn't have a problem in that sense. I just think that call by would have been nice, because obviously, you know, there are, you know, other means for, aside from hand traps, in which it's able to shut down your opponent. So yeah, those are the changes, and that's the deck. As I said, definitely jump into the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think of the build. Let me know how you guys did at Nationals. You know, we can chat it up, talk about, you know, how it went for you guys, how your experience was. Hopefully your guys' experience was as good as mine. I definitely had a lot of fun. It was great. I was able to pick up some things that I didn't have before. I was able to pick up the Field Center that you guys seen here, the Judge Beatrice one. I picked up two of them, actually, one sealed for collection and then one for use that I took out of the plastic there. So yeah, I mean, I had a lot of fun and I really enjoyed myself. And if you guys have any questions about the build, have any ways to transform the deck, definitely feel free to jump in the comment section below as well. You know, we're always looking to make the deck better and always trying to make Phantom Knights work. So, you know, that's definitely the play there. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. You know, continue to provide me with support. I really appreciate you guys checking out my videos and subscribing as well. Definitely getting a lot more views on my videos and trying to make the content as good as possible so that you guys can continue to enjoy it. And then, of course, obviously give as much explanation as possible. So yeah, as I always say, jump in the comment section and like and subscribe and enjoy. Appreciate you guys.